right, welcome to Rewatch or Return, the podcast where we put movies through the ultimate test across 10 universal categories to decide, does it call for a definite rewatch, a definite trip to the return bin, or does our subjectivity cause it to fall somewhere in between? Today, given the recent passing of Chuck Norris, I thought it'd be fitting to do a movie such as this. So we'll be looking at 1992's Sidekicks. It was one of my favorite movies growing up. We'll get into what I think about it now, but I absolutely loved this movie as a kid. So let's jump right into a quick one-sentence plot synopsis on Rotten Tomatoes, which says, an otherwise rejected or ignored boy, Jonathan Brandis, creates a fantasy pal, Chuck Norris, from his martial arts movie hero. That's all that says. So, with that down, we're going to just jump right into Fast Forward Facts. Rewinding back to 1992, when martial arts movies were everywhere, and one action legend had already kicked his way into pop culture immortality, Chuck Norris. But instead of another straight action film, Sidekicks delivered something a little different. A family-friendly fantasy about a bullied kid whose hero literally steps out of his imagination. The film stars Jonathan Brandis as Barry Gabrewski, a shy, asthma-struggling teenager who escapes his rough school life by daydreaming about martial arts adventures with his idol, Chuck Norris. In Barry's imagination, he's Norris's ultimate sidekick, helping defeat villains and saving the day with high-flying karate moves. Eventually, Barry meets a quirky martial arts instructor played by Mako, who helps him build real confidence through karate training. With practice, determination, and a little inspiration from his hero, Barry enters a local martial arts tournament where he might finally stand up to his bullies. One of the movie's most fun twists is that Chuck Norris actually plays himself, appearing both in Barry's dream sequences and later in the real world. The fantasy scenes parody classic martial arts action films, with Barry imagining himself as Norris's equal partner in slow-motion fight scenes. The movie was directed by Aaron Norris, Chuck Norris's real-life brother and longtime filmmaking collaborator. Aaron directed several Norris films throughout the late 1980s and early 1990s, helping shape the action star's on-screen image. Behind the scenes, Sidekicks was partially inspired by Chuck Norris's own childhood experiences with bullying and self-confidence issues before discovering martial arts. The film's message about perseverance and inner strength reflects Norris's real-life story. The production also marked one of the early starring roles for Jonathan Brandis, who had already begun gaining attention on television before later appearing in projects like seaQuest. His earnest performance gave the movie a relatable, emotional core that resonated with younger audiences. Filming took place primarily in Texas, Norris's home state, and several martial arts sequences were designed specifically to showcase authentic karate techniques rather than purely cinematic fighting styles. While Sidekicks wasn't a massive box office hit, it quickly became a cult favorite on VHS and cable television, especially among kids growing up in the early 90s. For many fans, it was their first introduction to Chuck Norris, not just as an action hero, but as a symbol of confidence and determination. Today, Sidekicks remains a nostalgic time capsule of early 90s martial arts cinema, blending imagination, underdog spirit, and one very real legend who proved that sometimes your hero really can show up when you need him most. And in Barry's case, that hero just happened to be Chuck Norris. All right. With that down, we are going to roll right into what the critics said. This is where we look at the first top 10 critics on Rotten Tomatoes. This movie, this has got some rough scores here. The tomato meter is at 26%, so your critics absolutely despise it, apparently. And the popcorn meter is at 49%, so we're not even at 50% with the general audience. This is not looking good. Looking at what the critics themselves said, Michael Wilmington from the Los Angeles Times says Sidekicks is amiable enough, even if cinematically it makes Cop and a Half look like 8.5. Cop and a Half is going to be a good movie to do at some point, for those of you who saw that back in the day. Michael H. Price from Fort Worth Star-Telegram says, couched playfully amid all the ham-bone, hokum, and Rocky-style heroic flourishes of Sidekicks, there hides an undeniable sense of dignity and emotional uplift. Then Bob Finster from the Arizona Republic says, Sidekicks is so predictable that you could leave the theater, break a few bricks of your own, and not miss anything. Joe Layden from Variety says a lightweight but diverting effort. Nell Minnow from Movie Mom says modest little treat. Stephen Holden from the New York Times says the movie is burdened by a fill-in-the-blanks screenplay in which the actors have to spout such nuggets as dreams do come true if you want them bad enough, and remain kindly and straight-faced. Mark Savloff from the Austin Chronicle says Piscopo lends a note of reality to the film in what must surely be his dream role, that of an overamped steroidian karate instructor with a penchant for Neanderthal idiocy and serious overacting. Richard Harrington from Washington Post says Norris is affable and appealing, not only while parodying himself, but while being himself. PG suits him. Roger Ebert from the Chicago Sun-Times at the time said Sidekicks is sweet but predictable, the kind of movie where you enjoy the ride but recognize the terrain. And then Ty Burr from Entertainment Weekly says what really grates about Sidekicks is its hypocritical message, whatever that means. All right, moving on from that to First Time or 50th, where we just kind of go, hey, was this your first time you ever watched this? Or is it your 50th? Or, you know, the heart of the segment is, have you seen this a whole bunch or have you not? I watched this a ton as a kid. I couldn't even begin to like try to count how many times I legitimately saw this. This was like one of my all-time favorite movies as a child. I watched it any chance I got, anytime it was on TV, anytime I could rent it. I'm sure my parents thought it was the silliest thing they ever saw, but I enjoyed it. And yeah, I mean, it was a enjoyable film. More times than I could count beyond the first. Quite possibly could have been 50th. At least the 50th time I've sat down and saw a segment of it for sure, without a doubt. Now, moving on to be continued. Would a sequel work for this film? And if there's a sequel, should there have been? Well, there's not a sequel to my knowledge, and I don't think that there should have been a sequel. The film itself was, intended to be a comedy. So it was kind of this spoof comedy thing where, not spoof, I wouldn't say that. There was some spoofy stuff in his daydreams. So like the real life stuff wasn't necessarily meant to be spoofy, but the dream sequences absolutely were. So there was kind of poking fun at the action films of Chuck Norris, while at the same time trying to be somewhat serious in the real life section of it. So it just doesn't lend itself to something that should have the story continue in any way at all. It kind of comes to the conclusion of like, hey, I don't need this anymore, or I've overcome these things, and so this kind of crutch or this thing that I've been using to get by and escape reality, I don't need anymore because I've kind of overcome all these things that were that I was hiding from, if you will. So no, definitely doesn't need a sequel. Before we jump into the final segment, today's episode is brought to you by PrepStartsNow.com, your go-to spot for emergency and outdoor preparedness. If you're anything like me, you'd rather be prepared and not need it than need the essentials and not have them. From 72-hour emergency essentials to camping gear, car emergency essentials, multi-tools, first aid, and even home gardening supplies as you start growing some of your own food, they've got you covered for all of it. And the best part is, as a listener, you can use the promo code REWATCH to get a 15% site-wide discount, and you'll also be helping out the show as they give us a small reward for your business in the process. Head to PrepStartsNow.com/discount/rewatch. That's PrepStartsNow.com/discount/rewatch. Or simply enter the code REWATCH at checkout and get prepared today. Now, let's move into a quick recap. So this film, I'm gonna just kind of hit the basics here. This film starts off with, it's hard for me. It's been a minute. I watched this about 2 weeks ago, so I'm kind of going over it, not super duper fresh. It starts out, I think, with him in one of his daydreams, but essentially you have a kid who is an asthmatic. He's kind of a, I guess, nerd, if you will, but he's not athletic. He can't, like, nobody gives him a chance at anything. He kind of just, everybody babies him, and anyway, so he escapes real life that he can't seem to hardly deal with or whatever by having these daydreams about him and Chuck Norris doing, fighting people and all that. Well, he's getting bullied at school. The girl he likes kind of sees him. She's like, pities him, and she just she's nice to him because she's sad for him, not because she likes him. And so he ends up through the counselor at school, I believe, her uncle who owns a restaurant. He ends up like initially deciding, okay, like to try to help myself in the situation that I'm in, or to try to like find something that I can use to overcome these things or whatever. He's going to try out karate, and so he goes to this dojo where Joe Piscopo, who is famous from Saturday Night Live back in the, I guess, 80s. He is the head of this dojo, and it's the I love him anyway because of his comedy, but he is fantastic in the role. Like, he plays it perfect, but he plays kind of like a almost making fun of that type of character perfect. It really is perfect. But he's the head of the dojo, and Barry, while he's there, realizes, like, I don't want to do this. This is a very Karate Kid of everything. I'm not going to fit in here or whatever. Like, I'll go somewhere else and do something else. So he ends up basically having this uncle of his school counselor train him, and his in time he starts to actually get better at stuff, and he starts to kind of stand up for himself, and he starts to learn karate, and he starts to learn this nunchuck stuff, and kind of starts to catch the eye of the girl because he stood up for himself to the bully, and he's preparing for this fight that's going to be this big karate championship thing. So he's training. He's still, having all these Chuck Norris daydreams. And he finally gets to the point at the end of the movie where it's time for the karate championship. And he goes in there, and they only have 3 people as part of their team, but it's a 4-person team. It's a 4-person requirement for the team. So he goes in, and they can't find anybody. Well, Chuck Norris is from Texas. It's in Texas, so he shows up to this karate championship. You see that he has a past with Kelly Stone, the Joe Piscopo character, who kind of smack talks him a little bit. And so when offered the opportunity, Barry's trainer guy that runs the restaurant goes and talks to Chuck Norris, and he's like, hey, we need a 4th man for our team. And Chuck Norris agrees. So we come to find out that Chuck Norris is going to join the team of Barry. So now not only is he his daydreaming partner, but he's become his real life partner on this team to try to compete. So they go through the whole deal with the brick breaking and the floor routines and the weapon presentation routine and all that. And then there's the sparring stuff. And so Chuck Norris ends up kicking the crap out of Kelly Stone, or Joe Piscopo's character, in a quite comical way. And then Barry never fights the bully at the actual championship thing. So I have seen a lot of people say, like, this is basically just a knockoff of Karate Kid, but it's really not. In my opinion, it is I'll talk about this more later. But anyway, so he never fights the bully. He does brick breaking and weapons presentation. But when it's all said and done, the other guy that is the bully doesn't break the bricks. He calls for another brick. He doesn't break all of them, and then Barry steps up, and his trainer guy lights the bricks on fire, because who doesn't carry lighter fluid around in your pocket? And of course, at a karate championship, they're going to let you step up on the mat and spray lighter fluid all over the bricks you're about to break and set them on fire inside, in the middle of the arena. I'm sure that would actually be allowed. But he does that. He breaks the bricks. Everybody's excited. It's, he gets the girl at the end. He beats the bullies as far as their team. His team beats their team. And then at the end, he has a little kind of nice chat with Chuck Norris. And as he goes to walk away, he turns and Chuck Norris is no longer on the bench. And I'm not sure what they're trying to say there. On one hand, it's like maybe Chuck Norris just walked off. On the other, is it trying to say that like he wasn't actually having that conversation with Chuck Norris at the end? Chuck Norris had already left, and he was just like having another daydream about a conversation with Chuck Norris. I'm not really sure, but that's where essentially the movie ends, is him kind of walking off with the trophy in hand with his dad, with his girlfriend or his counselor, and whatever, his people, and then there's this kid on a wheelchair that rolls up and grabs this Chuck Norris magazine off of a bench and says, cool, or awesome, or something like that. And then that is the end of the film. Now, we'll move into the final verdict, which this is where we put the film to the test across 10 categories scored on a scale from 1 to 5. And that looks like this. 1 is poor, actively bad, annoying, or distracting. 2 is weak, flawed, or inconsistent. 3 is fair, meaning adequate, but nothing special. 4 is good, solid, works well, but not iconic. 5 is excellent, outstanding, a strong highlight of the film. And then when it's all said and done and everything is added up, if it lands between 10 and 20, it is a return it. Definite. If it lands between 20 and 30, it's return worthy unless you're feeling, a little nostalgic. If it lands between 30 and 40, it leans rewatch, but debatable. If it lands between 40 and 50, it is certified rewatchable. Now, this is going to be one of those films where there's the nostalgia of it, and from my childhood makes me want to rewatch this film. Whether or not this ends up as a rewatchable film, I don't know. I haven't even scored it yet. I'm gonna score it all, in real time. So what we're going to do here is jump into story and plot. Is the narrative compelling and coherent? Does it still hold up on a rewatch? The narrative is that you have a kid who can't do, can something like this happen? Yes. Can this kid who's not athletic and asthmatic and can't, on one hand, it's like, yeah, you can make somebody in a movie do all this stuff. So like, it's not impossible for someone to take up karate, get really good at it, train really hard, and then ultimately win things. So on that side of things, like, I guess it's coherent and it's fine, and it holds up in that is the story, that he's a kid who overcome his stuff with by training and learning all these things and spending the time to do it. Obviously there's montages that make all this kind of condensed down, but you don't know how long technically that is supposed to be in the film that he's training and does all this and learns all this. But the daydreaming stuff, it's obviously meant to be a daydream, so you can make your daydream just as outlandish as you want, and it's meant to be a daydream, so that doesn't necessarily ruin anything or mess anything up or make it silly. It's meant to be silly. It's a weird daydream. They're not trying to make it reality. So like, as an adult, put it this way, it was very compelling as a child. As an adult, I still enjoyed watching the movie. So the story and plot, I think I'm just going to put it like a 3 and say that it's fair, it's adequate, but nothing special. Like, it is very derivative of Karate Kid, but it kind of puts its own spin on it. It kind of like leans into the comedy of things. So actually, I'm going to put a 3.5. Like, maybe, yeah. I'm going to put 3.5. Actually, no. I'm just going to put a 3. Because, oh man, I'm struggling. I think I'm going to go with what my original gut feeling was, and I'm going to put 3.5 for story and plot. Characters and performances. Are the characters memorable and well acted, or forgettable and flat? Honestly, the characters are very memorable for me. I don't know if it's not that any of them are like fantastic actors, but it's like everybody did their job. Nobody's gonna win any awards for anything that happened or anything that they did. I wouldn't say anybody that's in the movie is, some Shakespearean, like, whatever. But, like, it's kind of like, hey, did you understand the assignment? Well, like, yeah. Um, I mean, your bully plays it a little over the top, but I think maybe on purpose. The silly Chinese, uh, I think he's Chinese. I believe so. Um, the uncle who has the restaurant, and I mean, he plays the part well. Joe Piscopo, I think, like, is the guy that nails everything more than anybody, and his is just like over the top silly. So, like, put it this way: for characters and performances, I'm gonna also give it a 3.5, and just say, like, I'm not gonna put it all the way up and go like solid, everything's super solid, but like it's adequate. It's between adequate and solid in there somewhere. You can disagree with me, but like ultimately, I don't think it could be far worse, I guess is what I'm saying. It's okay. And then there's, because of the level of, like, some people really just like leaned into their part. I'm just gonna give it. I'm gonna give it that extra 0.5. Looking at pacing and entertainment value, were you entertained the whole time? Did the movie keep your attention? Does it feel too slow, too rushed, or just right? I mean, I'm entertained watching the movie personally. Did the movie keep my attention? Yeah, like, it's a movie that's, you can it's a movie that you can sit down, you can put on, you can watch, and it's entertaining, and it will keep your attention. It's not boring. It doesn't get too slow. I don't think it's too rushed. I think it's like even a good amount of time. It's not a super duper long feeling movie. It doesn't feel super duper short. Feels just right. So for pacing and entertainment value, I'm gonna put 4 and just say, like, it's good. Like, they did a good job with making the movie they were intending to make, and pacing it well so that it doesn't get bogged down, you don't feel bored or whatever. Moving on to dialogue and quotability. Are there iconic or memorable lines? Do people still quote it? Does the dialogue feel natural or cringy? Um, are there iconic or memorable lines? No. Do people still quote it? No. Does the dialogue? I mean, random some random kids with nostalgia might, but in general, there's probably a lot of people that don't even know this movie exists. Do people still quote it? No. I'm going to say no. Does the dialogue feel natural or cringy? There's some cringe in this. So for dialogue and quotability, we're going to go with between 2 and 3. I'm going to put it at a 2.5 because, like, there's nothing special about it at all. There's nothing even really, like, outside of the Joe Piscopo stuff. And that's mostly just like faces and sounds and noises. Uh, but there's nothing really quotable in this. The dialogue's silly at times. So yeah, I'm just gonna go with the 2.5. Now let's go with soundtrack and score. Does the music enhance the film or date it? Does it elevate the emotional tone of the film or feel out of place? Is it iconic or generic? Well, uh, it feels very 90s. The music feels very 90s. I'm going to say it does date it to an extent. This is par for the course for this kind of film, for the music that's in it. Does it elevate the emotional tone of the film? It just does whatever it needs to do. It's not special. I think there's some, like, decent musical moments in some of the uh, weapons presentation stuff at the end where they're meant to be performing to music, but it's not even anything special there. Nothing feels really out of a place, but it's definitely not iconic. I would say it's more just kind of generic ish. Soundtrack and score, I'm just gonna put it at 3 and say, like, it's just adequate. It's okay. It does its job. There's nothing real bad about any of it. There's nothing real great about any of it either. Now, cinematography and visual style. Is it visually engaging or stylish, regardless of effects budget or genre? Do the camera work and effects still impress, or do they look dated or clunky? I mean, this movie was shot well. I liked some of the shot choices. There's a really cool shot of him on this waterfall fountain thing where he's doing some stuff, and the guy that's training him is riding a bike in a circle around it, and like the shadows that it's actually really cool. The way that that was shot, I like that choice. Um, there's nothing super, I mean, over effects or whatever, but they did a good job, I think, with like some of the stunts and stuff for some of the daydreaming stuff. The camera works and effects, still impressed. They look dated or clunky. I mean, like it. No, I'm gonna say for cinematography and visual style, um, like I'm gonna put it at a. I'm gonna put it at a like 4 and say like it's good. It's not bad. I don't say. I'm not even gonna say like it's like just adequate and whatever. Like I think they tried to make some decent shot choices and some angles and choose some stuff that would be at least interesting. And so I'm going to give them a 4 just for the attempted interest and for the sets that they built out for uh, some of the daydreaming stuff or whatever. I mean, like they went all out for the daydreams, which I thought like, hey, if you're going to do it, then do it big, which they did. I can appreciate that. So I'm giving that a 4 for cinematography and visual style, originality and creativity. Does the film feel fresh and inspired or like something you've seen 100 times? Was the film groundbreaking or formulaic? Does it bring something unique? Uh, I mean, I don't think it's really fresh and inspired at all. It's just kind of like your basic kind of family martial arts movie, very derivative of the Karate Kid with a different flair. Um, so like, no, I wouldn't say it's like fresh and inspired. I don't know if it's something necessarily you feel like you've seen 100 times, but it's anyway. It's not groundbreaking at all. I feel like it's a. I don't know if it's formulaic. I mean, I think, like I said, I feel like they try to put their own bit of spin on it, their own kind of unique take on like a Karate Kid type story. So for originality and creativity, uh, I'm gonna give them a. Let's see here. I'm just gonna say 3. Like or that would be good. Thumbs up would be good or good job. There's nothing super special about any of it. Like they they made an okay movie. It's not changing the world or anything. So I'm just going to give it a 3 for originality and creativity. Theme and message. Is there a deeper takeaway, and does this explore ideas that resonate today? I mean, this is Chuck Norris's attempt in the film. It's his brother, it's him, whatever. I mean, like, it's the attempt of, like, hey, push yourself, overcome your fears, um, work to overcome the things that are holding you back, whatever that may be. I mean, kind of don't let life keep you down. Don't let things that you can, potentially push back against, keep you held down and held back and whatever. So there's that, push yourself and better yourself and believe in yourself and, you know, shoot for the stars and chase your dreams kind of stuff. So like for theme and message, I'm gonna say 4. I'm okay with that. Yeah, I'm okay with that. And I guess we'll move on to cringe factor. Any jokes, effects, or moments that haven't aged well or were always bad. Moments that make you wince now, campy, cheesy, bad effects, outdated jokes that aren't funny, etc. Well, I mean, there's definitely some cringe in the movie. Obviously, the kids, I get they're supposed to be daydreams, but the fact that the kid daydreams on this level is a bit cringy. Uh, they're meant to be that way. I mean, like it's again, this movie is heavily intending to lean into that stuff. So it's not like it's trying to present it as this is totally normal. But I mean, there's some cheesy lines. Uh, some there are truly some lines. I'm trying to think of. Uh, I think it was Confused Breakfast. I was watching their podcast on this particular, or maybe I saw like a clip or something on a social media platform somewhere. But they were talking about like they're mentioning a few lines that are literally like almost identical, like identical lines stolen out of uh, Karate Kid. So you have a little bit of that cringe factor for this film. Uh, I feel like just because of what it is, I'm going to give it a 2.5. I'm sorry. I'm not even going to put it at fair. It's a pretty cringy film. It's intentionally cringy, but it's a cringy film, and so that's just where it's going to go. Nostalgia and rewatchability. Does it hold up to your memory of it? Does it still matter today? Is it timeless, or has it aged poorly? Does a rewatch ruin the magic? And would you honestly watch it again? Well, it holds up to my memory of it. I mean, it is exactly the movie that I remember it being, and I've seen it enough, and I've seen it recently enough that I'm not surprised. It doesn't watching it this time around didn't really wasn't like, oh, it's been so long. It's not what I thought it was. It's exactly what I thought it was, and I still enjoy it because of for what it is. Does it still matter today? I mean, I guess like no, not like in some. Does it matter to the industry or does it matter to pop culture or whatever? I mean, like there's a lot of people that probably seen this movie and grew up with it, and it matters to them. I mean, this film matters to like my childhood, but it doesn't have any real bearing on anything now. I don't. Is it timeless? I don't think it's necessarily aged poorly, but it's also not really a timeless film. I don't think. I mean, I don't. A rewatch does not ruin the magic. It holds up to my memory. I'm gonna watch it again, like for sure. But I'm struggling with this, like, is it timeless thing, and has it aged poorly? I don't think it's aged poorly. Timeless as in what? Timeless as in like, oh, it's a timeless classic. Because now I'm asking you what my thing here means that I have written. Uh, I'm trying to decide, am I even talking about like this is a timeless classic or this is a timeless film as in you can watch it at any point and because of the time that it was made, it still doesn't feel like it was only good in that era or it can only be enjoyed in that era for what it was because of the things in it or whatever. So for nostalgia and rewatchability, because of my own whatever, I'm going to give this a 3.5 out of 5 for nostalgia and rewatchability. You may totally disagree. I feel bad giving it anything lower than that for that particular category because I have a lot of positive, nostalgic feelings towards this film and towards the, Chuck Norris of the 90s and I guess even the 80s. I mean, I grew up watching Lone Wolf McQuade. I just said woof, like WOOF. Lone Wolf McQuade uh, a lot. And I guess that was probably an early 80s film. But anyway, let's add these dudes up and see what this score is going to be. Let's roll back through these. I am adding this up in real time as you listen, so I'm grabbing my calculator here. And we're going to say, all right, story and plot gets a 3.5. Characters and performances gets a 3.5. Pacing and entertainment value gets a 4 from me. Dialogue and quotability gets a 2.5. Soundtrack and score gets a 3. Cinematography and visual style gets a. You know what? I'm gonna drop that. I'm sorry. Here, real time. I'm dropping that to 3.5 just because cinematography and visual style, 3.5. Originality and creativity, +3 here. Theme and message, +4. Cringe factor, we got 2.5. And then nostalgia and rewatchability, 3.5, which brings us to 33 out of 50. And do you know what that means? It means that barely Barely, 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 barely. This one fits in that leans rewatch but debatable crowd. So it probably leans a little more towards return worthy than it does rewatch on the scale here. But the fact that it just barely squeaked into that leans rewatched but debatable category, that would be my score. Obviously, this is totally subjective, but because of the level of nostalgia that I have for this film, and how much I enjoyed it as a kid, and how much I still enjoy watching it, and kind of taking me back to my childhood. Um, you know, the last category really kind of gives weight to this whole thing for me. So, 33 out of 50. Um, I'm sure many of you who are watching, if you are not someone who enjoyed the film and you've watched it as an adult, then you're probably going to feel different. Many of you probably will maybe see this and you haven't watched the movie in years and you go, oh my gosh, I loved that movie. But then you might go back and watch it now after not having seen it for a long time and feel like this is the worst thing ever. I can't believe I liked this as a kid. But I don't think that would be the case. If you enjoyed it as a kid, I'm sure you would still enjoy it as an adult. You would just see the flaws, and you would also see that like this was a family movie made for kids to enjoy, or for young people to enjoy, teenagers or whatever. It's not made to be some super duper special whatever. I've already talked through all this, but man, this like makes me miss, or I guess want to go back and watch a lot of the old SNL stuff with Joe Piscopo, because he is really hilarious. Incredible shape in this film too, by the way. I guess the guy stayed in really good shape, but um, that dude is hilarious, and I highly recommend going back and watching any of his stuff, particularly Eddie Murphy doing. I'm just rambling on here, but I'm giving you a suggestion of an SNL skit to go find. So there is Piscopo playing Frank Sinatra, and Eddie Murphy playing Stevie Wonder, and it's a very very funny skit. All right, 33 out of 50. Leans rewatch but debatable. The movie is Sidekicks. Rest easy, Chuck Norris. Sad to see the passing of a legend, but he will go down as a legend. The dude was a legend before he died. All the Chuck Norris jokes um, kind of lifted him, I think, higher than his film career ever could have. Even if people who don't even know who Chuck Norris is really understand Chuck Norris jokes. So it's kind of wild. Um, anyway, hope to do some more Chuck Norris movies at a later point. I might jump into another one for the next episode potentially. I might go back and watch Lone Wolf McQuade. See how I want to do about that. That was probably my, you know, my favorite thing that he's ever done outside of this film, and like maybe Walker Texas Ranger or whatever. I never really watched a lot of the other stuff that he was real um, big into, like the Delta Force stuff. I mean, I've seen all that. What was it, Braddock or whatever the character he played? But that was never really. That was kind of before I was really heavily watching stuff, and I didn't really go back and watch it all. But I'm potentially going to watch Lone Wolf McQuade, and that could potentially be next week's episode. We shall see. With all that said, I will see you next week.